Hello and welcome to My Community, brought to you by the Library Television Network. I'm Fred Albert, the host, and today I'm very pleased to have as my guest Craig Petrie, who is the Executive Director of CommunityWorks in West Virginia. Craig began his journey as Executive Director of CommunityWorks in West Virginia in May of 2022. Prior to this position, Craig spent several years managing community service block grants for the Community Advancement Division of the West Virginia Department of Economic Development. That's a mouthful. It was during this time that he truly developed a passion for service that benefits fellow West Virginians. Craig spent 13 years at BB&T, now Truist, with 9 years dedicated to lending and branch management. He also had several entrepreneurial opportunities throughout his career. The culmination of his experience has led to the perfect fit for leading the CommunityWorks team. Craig is a graduate of Herbert Hoover High School. He holds a BS in Business Administration Management from West Virginia State University and an MBA from Marshall University. Craig is also a graduate of BB&T's prestigious Leadership Development Program. Craig is also the senior pastor of Amplify Church in Big Chimney. He enjoys spending all of his free time, and I'm sure that's at a premium, with his wife, Emily, and their 4 children. Welcome, Craig, to My Community.
Thank you, Fred. It's a pleasure to be here.
Well, it's our pleasure to have you here. You've got a pretty impressive bio there, and you've done some great work for our community already here in West Virginia. So let's talk a little bit about what actually is the job that you do besides your pastor's job.
Yeah, so I love the opportunity you have. You spoke about my bio, and I'll start with this. This was fun. When I went for the interview, the board of directors were there, and they said, "Why did you apply for this job?" And I said, "You took my resume and created this job." My job
sounds like it. It does sound like it.
It's wonderful. So we have some lending and other pieces that we do within there that brings in my banking background. We do grant work that comes in that's very, very similar to my state work. And so we at CommunityWorks in West Virginia have a focus on affordable housing. We want to see more West Virginians be able to achieve home ownership, to be able to get into homes that are affordable and safe and decent. And so our focus is that, and so we do all of our community work in trying to get people into housing.
That's terrific, and I think you mentioned earlier when we were having a conversation that CommunityWorks in West Virginia is 30 years plus?
Yeah, CommunityWorks in West Virginia began in 1991, and so for over 30 years it has had a focus on housing throughout the state. And one of the ways we do that, we work with a lot of other organizations. We consider ourselves an intermediary a lot of times.
Okay.
We work with community action agencies, housing authorities, Habitat for Humanities, nonprofit developers, recovery programs, anything that could tie into housing somewhere. Okay. We work with all of them, and we try to provide them opportunities, be it training and technical assistance or just bringing education to the state so that they can further pursue their housing opportunities in their market. So we work with a lot of organizations across and throughout West Virginia.
Well, that's so important, and you are a nonprofit.
We are.
So, you know, I had a phone call with one of your staff counselors, Miss Brown, and just so nice to talk with. I'm sure you've got a good team that you do work with.
We do, and so it's very interesting how we work as a nonprofit. Joyce is who you're speaking of. Joyce Brown is a new housing counselor with us at CommunityWorks, and her role, it's really exciting. Like you said, she's a very personable person. Someone lovely to talk to.
Felt like I had known her all my life.
She is that way, and her role is to counsel people in things like pre-purchase. So if someone is wanting to buy a home, she can assist them with the pre-purchase process. We even go to post-purchase. There's a lot of times people don't know what to do once they have.
Oh, absolutely. I've experienced that myself.
And many do. She can handle that post-purchase side, where it could be as simple as reminding someone to clean out their gutters or change the filter in their HVAC system. Right. So we don't just leave you hanging. We're not looking for a specific transaction to happen and be done. We like to counsel all the way from start to finish and be there for you even after the fact. So she does that, and home ownership counseling for those who do own, rental counseling. Just it may be maybe tight in budget. Maybe rent is tough right now.
Sure.
Maybe you're trying to find out if it's time to get out of rent and buy a home. And she can help through all of those processes. We even do some financial capabilities training, which is, we like to educate people about finances. Help give you that mental mindset about money, budgeting, just all of those things that are happening in your life every day that maybe you don't think about.
So if someone is feeling pretty discouraged, maybe let's say they haven't had the most sterling credit report or credit history, and they're thinking, you know, I'll never be able to own a home, but that is the American dream still.
It is.
And so can they use
they need
your
to give
community?
us a call. That is exactly who we want to talk to. The majority of the people who come to us are coming to us in a place where they no longer feel like homeownership is an option.
Right.
And it is our job, it's our passion, it's our calling to work with them and to assist them. We pull their credit report. Or they pull their credit report and bring it to us. But we sit down with them and go line by line through their credit report
Of what they need to do to make improvements,
to see,
or
to sometimes
make corrections.
even just to explain to them what's there.
Sure.
Often we don't even know
That's true.
what's on our credit, and so to be able to go through and explain what's negatives, what are the positives, what pieces do they need to continue to do, and we work with them through not only the credit report piece, but then budgeting. You know, if you're going to be able to buy a home and the house payment is X, can you afford it in budget? What can we do to help you afford that in budget? And so the counselors take that time to just kind of walk through your specifics for you individually, because everyone's different.
Sure.
So we don't just have a cookie cutter process. We take the time individually with families to walk through the budget and credit and those pieces to see where we can better assist.
And purchasing a home in and of itself is a big decision to make, but you also have to go beyond that, because once you are in that home, you have utilities, you have city services, you have insurance, and all those taxes,
Yes,
things that you may not think about prior to buying a home, but once you get in there, you're responsible for that. So,
yeah, it happens either way at that point. So we do try to counsel through those pieces. We want them to understand the big picture of what buying a home means. But what we're finding out, and even with the crazy rates in the market and the things going on now, we've been able successfully this year to put some people in homes. And again, it's a lending program. It's much like a bank. But we often do that with subsidized rates. We're able to find opportunities, maybe down payment subsidies. We find other ways to help them to get into the home. So we can kind of take some extra steps that maybe the banks aren't able to do. And so we work with them in that process, and then we want to make sure their budget will suffice and they'll be able to handle it once they get in the home. But we're finding often with the homes some are able to purchase, some of their budgets are actually better than what they're paying in rent right now in some places. So,
I've heard that also. Well, do you ever run into a situation where someone goes through the counseling or the program and they do buy a home, and then they're in there for a while and they think home ownership is not for me? Do they come back to you and say, help me get out of this? Does that ever happen?
They definitely can. So we not only on the front end want to educate the best we can through the process to make sure you're comfortable with the decision to buy a home. But if you get to the place where it does become a challenge, we actually have a foreclosure intervention piece as well. And we'll counsel through those things, trying to make sure that you don't foreclose on the home. Right. There's no challenges in that process. We'll do our best to help you through that. We carry the majority of the loans ourselves at the organization, so we try to be pretty flexible. Sure. And giving some time to work through those processes. But honestly, that's not very common. Okay. We educate, I think, so strong on the front end. Again, many are in a better financial position, and we don't see too much of that at the end with people coming back. It happens occasionally. Sure. But we'll be there for that too.
Okay, that's good to know. You mentioned earlier in I think our conversation earlier about working with Habitat for Humanity. So, how does that play out?
Yeah, so we work with many organizations. Actually, one of my board members is from Habitat for Humanity of the Eastern Panhandle. All right. And so sometimes our processes with them could just be as simple as providing their organization training or technical assistance, providing them sources of funds that allow them to do projects they want. Sometimes part of our role is community development. We say housing, but in that community development comes as well. And so we work with mixed use properties in old downtowns, and we do that through these other nonprofit organizations.
Okay.
So someone like Habitat might have a need, may want to try to open up a restore or do that. We often can find grant opportunities or some funding sources to assist them in making that happen in their market. Okay. So we let them run their housing, how they do housing in their market. Right. We allow them to, they build their homes. If they need any financing that we can help them with, we'll do that. But we just try to assist them and help them achieve their mission. Okay.
So we know that the housing market is pretty tight here in West Virginia, actually across the nation right now, from what I've heard. Is that presenting a real challenge for your organization, for my community?
It is. In the state of West Virginia, there's I believe, some very great things that are happening. But with those great things sometimes come side effects.
Right.
Tourism is a wonderful thing.
Sure.
We're beginning to see people, flood in to see the beauty of West Virginia. We know it's here.
Absolutely.
And it's a wonderful thing.
Yes.
But with that comes short-term rentals,
Yep.
Airbnbs, second homes, things we're not used to seeing.
Well, and I heard just a few years ago, and I'm going to throw this example out, like in Fayetteville or in Fayette
Absolutely.
County, with the national park there, that people were just buying homes sight unseen. They were, out-of-state people just buying up homes. Yeah. And I'm sure that would have presented a problem as far as availabilities.
And it continues to. Yeah. Areas like Fayetteville, even areas like Mingo County, Hatfield-McCoy Trails, we're seeing people come in and buy properties at more than they're worth.
Is that right?
And so Davis-Thomas areas, some of those areas that Eastern Panhandle kind of became a second home haven for a lot of, DC and other areas. Mm-hmm. That's all new for us. Those are all new challenges for us. West Virginia has always had one of the highest, if not the highest, home ownership rate in the country.
Is that right?
It is. We do take pride in our home ownership in West Virginia. And so we love having our homes, and a concern of mine is what happens for the next generation. What happens for my kids? Sure. Are they going to be able to afford home in the area that I live in? And it's going to be a challenge.
Well, let's talk about affordability. I know just a few years ago the interest rates for loans were down pretty much at a record low. Yeah. Now that's not the case right now. Hopefully it'll even out here in the near future, but is that also presenting a challenge for you?
It does. I think what it's doing currently for us is it's beginning. People aren't looking at homes. They know rates are high. It does make the affordability much smaller. You can afford a lot less home than you could just a few years ago. Right. I will say I don't want that to hinder people from contacting us.
No, it shouldn't.
We operate a little different than the banks. We often subsidize our rates. Again, we look for subsidized help, be that down payment assistance or other programs that might make it more affordable. And so I don't want people, just because rates are high in the industry, and they are, I don't want it to hinder them from contacting us, because we operate a little different. And I won't throw rates out there, but I would say we find opportunities to help people even at a time where they think that might not be possible.
Well, let's talk about the down payment and the closing cost that's associated with buying a home. Do people always have to have a down payment? And at one point it was recommended a 20% down payment. Is that still the standard, and let's talk about closing cost in that as well.
It is the standard in a lot of the regulated financial industries, although there are products out there. You had kind of a weird 2008 housing bubble,
yes.
and some challenges. It kind of changed the mortgage industry for a while. We're beginning to see products come back that are a little more lenient. We operate a little different. We do some 100% financing. We actually will do some 103% financing to include the closing costs, so that you don't necessarily have to come to us with money down. We're more concerned with your want to do it, your dedication to the process, your time in counseling. Like, that's how you begin to prove to us that you really want to get into a home. And so we do our best on the financial side to kind of move that bar a little bit and maybe get 103% financing and help you still get into a home. But at the industry, again, a lot of times, you have to have some money down.
So let's say someone comes to CommunityWorks in West Virginia, and they have a horrible credit history, and it looks fairly bleak. But they go through a counseling situation, or your counselors work with them and give them a plan of this is what you need to do. Do you recall some success stories in that type of scenario?
We do, and I'm expecting many more. Here's something exciting that we're getting ready to start. This is brand new for us. We're actually starting a small credit repair loan product.
Okay.
Where when we see those situations, excuse me, we see people trying their best. They're sending $15 to this medical bill, $10 to the old charged off card, $20 over here, and they're really trying their best to get their credit straightened up. They really want to get into a home. We've created a loan product that will allow us to consolidate some of those debts. Nobody really wants that. That's a hard lending product.
Sure
but we believe we can create future home buyers, and that's our focus.
That's
and
the goal.
so if we can consolidate, maybe small, $5,000 or less, but consolidate some pieces, what we think will happen is instead of waiting 7 years for that medical bill to come off your credit, we can have it off your credit next month, or in 60 days, or in 90 days, or whatever we can get it paid off and gone.
That would be a relief.
We believe we can expedite that process. And then our loan that we have in place will then begin reporting good to your credit each month. So we'll make sure that gets reported for you as a positive to your credit. So we're excited to see how that works. But over the last couple of years, a year and a half, I've been in the position, we've seen some people who didn't think housing was possible. And my favorite thing we get to do is a loan closing.
That's time for celebration.
It is a celebration at CommunityWorks. Like we love that. Excuse me. The last lady had taken some time. Honestly, the process was about 2 years, in kind of matching up everything from her credit to a home that worked for her, and a home that we felt was safe and decent and good for her. And so, a lot of joy at the table when that finally happens.
I'm sure.
And they get handed the keys to their new home.
So I know that CommunityWorks in West Virginia has a website.
We do.
And you have a Facebook page.
We do.
Instagram.
We don't yet. It's coming.
Okay.
It's coming.
Instagram is coming. But do you have testimonials on those sites where people have been successful and they're willing to tell their story and maybe be inspiring and encouraging to other people?
So that is something we're working on right now.
Okay, good.
We're very excited. We're rebuilding our website. So you might see some pieces here on the screen, but we're going to be rebuilding our site. We want it to be a little more interactive. We are wanting just that. We want testimonials to be out there for people to see. Our clientele is more than happy to share how we've assisted them.
I would think they would be.
Yeah,
I would
they
think
are.
because it's success, and like you said, it's time to celebrate and share that good news. What about the price of building materials? You know, here since 2020, we've had a supply chain shortage.
Yeah.
The building costs skyrocketed. I don't know how much they've leveled off or have come down, but is that still an issue that you all are dealing with in CommunityWorks in West Virginia?
It is. Other challenges we're seeing in housing, again, we kind of spoke on tourism, economic development's driving, again, people into the state, but we don't necessarily have the housing for them yet.
That's going to be an issue,
I think it is. And so, again, we begin to push people out of the housing of their markets. You and I had spoke earlier about the flood of 2016. Natural disasters has affected our housing, and we're not able to replace the homes that were damaged in that time or taken away. All of those things kind of compile, and so on the back end, we need to be building homes. We need to be developing, and it is tough with the cost of goods right now still high, and honestly, a limited number of people wanting to develop. It's very challenging. And so we work with some nonprofit developers who are very good at what they do. But to do that right now, there has to be almost a subsidy out there piece to allow them to even build a home that's affordable. And we see the challenge across the board. We use the phrase affordable housing a lot, but we see that the issues are not just there. It's also in workforce housing. It's also in market rate housing. We really are getting to the point we don't have homes available. And it's becoming a challenge.
I guess that's a good problem to have, but it is a problem that needs to be worked with. What about our state of West Virginia is CommunityWorks in West Virginia in all counties?
So
all
we are.
55 counties, you work across the board?
We are. We are a community development financial institution, a CDFI. And as a CDFI, we receive some funds from the Department of Treasury on a federal level. And we cover the entire state of West Virginia. And our organizations are from all over the state. My board of directors are from all over the state. It's a wonderful thing. I have board of directors from Mingo County and Eastern Panhandle and everywhere in between. And we have good coverage of what's going on in the state. And these people are very experienced. My board of directors are phenomenal, very experienced people who have been in the housing industry, many of them 20, 30, 40 years.
Oh, that's a good.
And so it's a great way to be connected to what's going on, very different in the Eastern Panhandle than maybe in McDowell County.
Yes.
And understanding those differences, and I have board members in both places. So it's a great way to figure out what's going on. But yeah, we cover the entire state. Sometimes the fit is with a counseling agency or someone else we work with somewhere else in the state, and that's fine with us. We don't have to have it all. We can offer products to help that organization work with people in their market. That way, when they are eligible for a home, they know that market. And so we're very connected with many other organizations throughout cities and other things that we try to work with to make sure we just get a beat on housing everywhere.
You mentioned a place that in West Virginia that's very near and dear to my heart, McDowell County, because I know as an educator myself, one of the challenges that that particular county has faced in recent years, well, for many years, is affordable housing for teachers and other school workers, and they can't keep them. They can go across the border to Virginia and live, but they can't live close to the schools where they teach, and that's a real issue. So I know that we need to look for solutions. And
I think we're trying to find, I get to do a lot of things on a national level. I get to speak with a lot of other organizations, and we're trying to find what are maybe even some alternatives? What's some alternative building models? What could we be doing different in West Virginia that, we've always done everything stick built. That's kind of our process. Is that the only answer? And right now we're not sure.
Are there maybe some existing buildings that could be renovated or remodeled? Do you get into that?
We are doing a lot more of those where we take what we would say a mixed use property in an old downtown. We like to see that first floor space become typically a community space again. It could be a business incubator, it could be really another nonprofit organization in there, it could literally be a community center. And then we're seeing the floors above those become rental apartments, affordable living. And
that did happen in McDowell County. I don't know if you're familiar with the Renaissance Village that was built there. I believe it's fully occupied now, but the first floor was to be a gift shop, coffee shop, bookstore type thing, and then the other floors housing. That was the first building built there in Welch, West Virginia, in over 50 years. The first multi-story building built there. So there are some opportunities that we need to go beyond just the traditional home building and look at. I think that would apply.
And this is a concern for everyone. This is housing is something that everyone can agree is a need.
Sure.
No matter politics, no matter private or public, everyone understands the importance. And right now in the nation, housing is one of the primary topics that we must be focused on. And we get a lot of support, and I love this. We get support from foundations like the Claude Worthington Benedum Foundation. We work with Western Housing Development Fund. But we also work with private entities. We work with Truist and the Truist Foundation, Huntington Banks. There are those who support us, even from the corporate side, who say we understand housing is important, and they will fund us to go out into the communities and do the work that maybe is a little outside their box, going into markets that maybe they aren't in so much. And so it's been kind of exciting to see private and public and everyone just kind of come together and say, look, we have a housing issue. We must figure this out. And we all want to do it together. And so
henceforth the name CommunityWorks in West Virginia. But let's look at another aspect. Do you ever counsel or work with people who maybe have lived in their home for a long, long time, elderly people who maybe need some upgrades and they haven't been keeping up. They might need some grab bars in the shower, or just to make their home a little bit more comfortable so they can remain in their home. Are you ever approached by people in that regard?
Absolutely. So that would be probably the one last issue I would think that really affects our housing in West Virginia, is we do have a very aging housing market.
Well, we have some of the oldest population in the nation here in West Virginia.
And with that population are homes that are second, third, and fourth generation homes, and homes that need exactly what you're saying, health and safety type needs. We do a rehabilitation program. It is a loan, but we try to be as flexible as possible, long terms, low rates, the best we can right now. For a limited time, we're offering no closing costs on our rehabs at all. So if someone needs that assistance, we'll go in. And it doesn't mean we don't need an appraisal or an attorney to help us, but we're going to cover those costs right now. And so I have some funding, and when that runs out, I don't know what we'll do, but for now, that's an option out there. And so we really want to preserve those homes. We believe that many homes, if we don't do something in the next 5 or 10 years for them, they won't be there.
Sure.
And so if we can go in and assist them, put a roof on, put the deck in, do a few things around their home, and then we try to connect them with other programs after that. If there are weatherization programs or other programs that could come in and do further work to make their homes not only safe and decent now, but also makes it more efficient. We want to connect with all of those pieces we can and get as much done as possible for those homes so we can preserve them for the next generation.
Well, that sounds great. What about, is there anything else that you'd like to share with us that we haven't touched on about CommunityWorks in West Virginia that would be important for people to know?
I do say we're advocates for housing. If anyone has something they want to talk to us about, that we visit down here at the Capitol. We talk on the national level. We meet with our senators and others to discuss housing in West Virginia. So we want to be advocates for that. We believe education is super important. We do the West Virginia Housing Conference, which in 2024 will be September 25th, 26th, and 27th.
Okay.
We host that conference here at Embassy Suites here in Charleston, and it's 3 days about nothing but housing topics. A lot of maybe new, innovative things, and then just some real basics on housing. And that's intended typically for organizations to send their people in so we can help train them up on housing issues so they can then go back in their markets and help the people that are in those markets.
And I know different communities have home shows. Do you ever participate in those as a
we can
information source?
Yeah, we can from time to time. We find ourselves, again, in a lot of national conferences and places. I've had chances this year to speak in D.C. and Chicago and Orlando and other areas to talk about housing in West Virginia. It's a great place for us to learn as well. But we're excited about 2024.
Great.
We believe it's going to be a great time to help a lot of people, and we hope people reach out.
Wonderful. Craig, it's been so nice to have you here on My Community talking about CommunityWorks in West Virginia. We look forward to having you back sometime.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you for being with us on My Community, and we look forward to seeing you the next time.